Hello, my name is Johanna Avery. I'm going to be talking to you about the Celtics, particularly the Irish, and how their death rituals. Beginning in the 19th century, the Irish truly believed that um, death was a spiritual thing, and that death brought spirits and into the three stages, either into heaven, into hell, or purgatory. And only way that they could get out of purgatory is if their sins were amended. And they also believed that death was final and that it was worth celebration, and that it was a positive, loving time. So, starting in the 19th century, the Irish would, if there were a becoming of a death person, they would either be Catholic or Protestant. And in a Catholic religion, before the person had passed, they would bring in a priest to do last rites, meaning like basically a prayer over the body, so that the spirit would be going to hopefully heaven, and the spirit would be positive and loving, and not evil. After the body would pass, the mirrors would be covered, because they believe that if the mirrors were open, that the evil spirits could see themselves and wouldn't leave. The clocks and all the clocks in the house would pause and stop, because they believed that it was a timeout to grieve and to celebrate the life of the person that died. And they would also open all the windows in the house to release the spirit from the body. And when a person had passed, they would take the body and put it on a table within the house, a long table. And the men would go outside and smoke tobacco, because they believed that the tobacco would take away any evil spirits. As well as the women, which they called the Keeners, would be the lead female or woman that would prepare the body for the wake or the morning time, the time of mourning. So when these women went through the preparing of the body, they were not allowed to be emotional or have any grieving time until the body was completely prepared for the wake. And I found that very interesting, because I don't know if I could be that woman to prepare the body and not have any emotions. So in preparing the body, they would have the table or the body on the table, and they would wash the body as best as possible. Then they would put the clothing, nice clothing, a suit or dress, or maybe the person told them what they would like to be buried in, and the lead lady would dress that body in that. Then they would wrap the body in a cloth-like thing, and maybe tie bows or ribbons around it, and then place candles and maybe flowers or any memorabilia around the body. And the body was never left alone during this period, and this period could take a couple days. But the body was never left alone. And then the house would be open for visitors. It could be anybody in the community. It could be family. It could be friends. And they would bring food, and they would bring drink. And they would just sit in the room with the body and maybe just have conversations or reflect on the person, or, tell stories, or just kind of help that mourning time for the family, and as well as just celebrate this person's life, because they believe that it is a celebration in life, even though it's fatal now. Um, this would go on a few days, and then when that period would end, they would either carry the body or transport the body to where they want to have this service. And it could be in a church, it could be in a pub, it could be in a park, or just where it would be important for the family and the friends to have the celebration of life for this deceased person. If they were transporting the body and they were to pass the deceased's house, they would stop there and take a moment of silence, and just so that out of respect for the deceased. And then they would take the body to the designated place, and they would have a celebration. And most of the people in Ireland at this time would be Catholics or Protestants, and most likely Catholics. And they would start the service, and as well as the priest would be involved in all of these, partaking in the preparing the body and the wake and the funeral. And so the priest would lead like a mass kind of ceremony, so that they could make a celebration for this body. And they believed that the body was the physical part, but that the spirit would be either going to heaven, hell, or purgatory. Heaven, of course, being the best outcome, hell not being a good outcome, and purgatory was the thought to believe area between heaven and hell. And they believe that the only way to get out of purgatory would be to have your sins amended, and then they can go on to heaven. During this ceremony, they did it as a celebration with music and poems and writing songs and telling stories, as well as, the traditional mass at that time, led by a priest or a deacon. And then they would, again, have the pallbearers, usually 6 of them, transferred to the burial site. And the community and the family and the friends would follow behind the pallbearer and the body to the burial site. And then they would have a burial site ceremony, not very long, just a few prayers and maybe some songs and poems, and then they would bury the body. In today's day, it is a little bit different. The Irish use more of a funeral ceremony, and they would, the funeral home would prepare the body, not instead of the female and having the males outside. And then they would do the funeral wake at a funeral home, and then they would do a mass ceremony, most likely, and then they would do a burial ceremony. I was intrigued when I went and found out this information, and I am very excited to share it. Thank you for listening, and take care.